So, this week's episode, welcome everybody. I thought we would have a little conversation about, I've kind of titled it, physician heal thyself type thing.
Okay.
I'll explain what I mean as we go along. And it's kind of two things here. I might sort of blend it in with some talk about recruitment as well, because I think that's something that's been coming up a lot in recent conversations with clients. So this sort of heal thyself thing is, I was having a chat with a client probably a month ago now, 3 weeks, doesn't really matter. And he's got a background in marketing. So he's been chief pointy hat marketer, whatever you want to call it, a large corporate, knows his onions, had a team of people working for him, understands digital marketing, understands the principles of marketing, could probably write the book on marketing, as many people could do. Smart guy. Okay, and he now runs his own business. And we were having a chat about his customer acquisition strategy, following a conversation about pricing, interestingly. And I said to him, so your marketing strategy for the next year, shall we go through that? And he looked at me and went, what marketing strategy? I said, well, what campaigns are you going to run over Easter? What have you got set for Christmas next year? Summer, when it gets a bit quieter. New Year obviously will take care of itself because people are banging down the door for his business. He runs a gym and all that sort of stuff. And he said, well, we just sort of make it up as we go along. I said, oh, that's really interesting. I said, don't you have a background in marketing? And he said, yeah. And I said, so when you became a business owner and you started this business, did you forget you had a background in marketing, or did that part of your brain get cut away and got replaced with business owner brain? And he sort of looked at me like I'm mad, because I am a little bit. But he went, I'm not sure I get it. I said, you've got all these skills. You were head of marketing for a global company. Why are you not applying them in your own business? And he looked at me and he sort of said, I don't know. And I just thought it was a really interesting subject, that we all have skills from previous lives or at school, or whether it's because we've got perfect example for me is the discipline I showed, being able to turn up for training every day as a tennis player, has translated really easily into turning up and being disciplined and practicing or training with the things that I need to do for the business. I write an email once a week. It's not a lot of work, but it's a hell of a lot of, it's very easy not to do it. But I've created a habit, and it's part of practice, and it's part of my weekly routine, as was sprint work, weight work, whatever. So I do it. So I've got those skills of how to kind of create a working pattern and a training schedule, if you like, and I've applied it to my business. He hasn't. And it got me thinking about how many other people have got these skills, have got an ability, if you like, but as soon as they have this business owner hat on, they forget that it exists. Because I promise you, if he was in a room with other business owners and somebody else in that room said, oh, I'm really struggling with my marketing, he would jump in and he would be able to fix it. He would be able to just step right up there and go, well, what you need to do is this. It's really easy. Look, I'll show you and I'll help you do it. I don't even do that anymore, but this is, we can throw something together. It'll be a lot of fun, and let's go, and I'll find some time for you. But why doesn't he do it for himself?
I don't know. Why doesn't he? It's maybe I'm more unusual, because I think a lot of people end up doing businesses in a role that they've previously done in an employed way, and that's the bit that they're good at. and they focus on that and being the technician, and they forget about all the things that it needs to be the business owner. So he sounds like the opposite of that. He's thrown himself into being the business owner and forgotten the skills that he's had from previous roles.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I've had a few other conversations with people recently about this, sort of, who are in a similar position where they're providing a service for other business owners, for example, yet they don't apply those principles for their own business. So a great example, I know somebody whose business is essentially doing outsourced business development. And he's really, really good at talking to people, generating relationships, and creating leads for the businesses that he represents. And he can represent 3 or 4 businesses at a time. And he's got, the ability to kind of juggle those so that there's no mix. When it does kind of overlap, he uses that as an advantage. He's very disciplined with his time. But his business isn't growing. So although he clearly can sell, and he clearly knows how to develop relationships, when he's getting paid to do it by another business, he does it and he turns up and he delivers the value. But he doesn't do it for his own business. And it's not because he can't. He just doesn't think to do it. So we had a conversation about him setting himself up. This sounds a little bit weird, but basically him setting his business up as a client of his, and actually putting an invoice in and only being paid, so only taking dividend out of the business, if you like, if he'd done the work on behalf of his own business. So to just treat it as he's currently working with 4 clients. Well, you need to create a 5th client, and you need to set up a contract, and you need to create a direct debit into a different account, because that's how he gets paid on a retainer basis. And you only get paid if you've done the work. So you now need to craft your week into 5 sections rather than 4 sections, or your day, or whatever it is. You need to have 5 notebooks rather than 4 notebooks, or whatever it is.
It's a mindset thing, isn't it?
It is. But he was like, but if I do that, I've got less time for my real clients. And I'm like, but if you're not going to have a business if you don't treat your business as a client. I mean, what a wonderful skill to be able to sell that comfortably.
Yeah, most people would chop the right arm off for
Wouldn't
that.
they?
Yeah.
But he's very happy to give it away, or not give it away, but to sell it to other people, but not utilise it in his own business. Same with, gym owner. Being great at marketing, understanding the principles, knowing how to put a strategy together. The fact that he can do his own paid ads and his own social. He's a really good content writer as well. I mean, his copy's fantastic. And most people will pay thousands of pounds a month to get access to that. He has it on tap for free. Doesn't use it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say about that, to be honest.
The email marketer who doesn't use email in his own marketing, but charges thousands of pounds to do it for other people, and does a really, really good job, but then gets a little bit concerned that he's not generating enough work for himself. The copywriter whose website is illegible.
It does beg the question of, like, those things, particularly, less so the gym owner, but those things are essentially their shop window for clients to see what they can do. And so if they don't have a website, or they're not using email marketing effectively, then how are they winning business? Because it's not from those things, is it? And so it's almost in spite of not doing those things, which means that it's even more awesome, because just think how easy it would be if they were doing the thing that they're actually selling.
Yeah, and I'm trying to get my head around and sitting here hoping that I'm not doing the same thing. But I think because, well, it's too easy for me to say, okay, well, my skill is facilitation and coaching. Do I need to facilitate more coaching conversations with myself? I don't know. I think I'm pretty self-aware and challenge myself on a regular basis, and so I probably do. I might be finding excuses there. I don't know. I think I do, but you'd never trust a skinny chef or a fat personal trainer. You'd hope a personal trainer would train themselves as well, wouldn't you? Rather than going, well, I only have time. Because,
definitely a personal trainer. I think skinny chef, it depends on what type of food they're promoting or what ethos, because if they are promoting, healthy food, then you wouldn't want a fat chef, for example.
No, I do.
I know what you're saying.
You never trust a chef that doesn't taste his own food.
I know what you're saying.
And if you're cooking all day, you hope he's tasting quite a lot. Yeah, or she's tasting quite a lot. Yeah, so it's just interesting, and I think I'm sitting here and I'm kind of reeling through every client that I've currently got, and suddenly aware that for every single one of them, they have skills from a previous life or that is part of what they do already, that they're not applying within the business to make it more effective, to grow it, to make it more efficient, to make it more profitable, whatever it is that they need to do.
What do you think's stopping them then?
Awareness, actually.
So they've just forgotten that they've got these skills, or
Don't know. Maybe it's
too focused on other stuff.
Probably that, or the lobotomy they had when they became a business owner. I don't know. It's definitely, and I don't think it's just previous talent, if you like, or acquired skill. There's almost an element of cyclical, forgetful behaviour. So I remember when I was a tennis coach in my old life, you'd go on a CPD day, and you'd pick up 4 or 5 new drills. They weren't new drills; they were old drills dressed up as new drills. And then probably for about a month, 6 weeks, it wouldn't matter which club you went to in the Ochil area, every coach was doing the same drill because they'd picked it up. And then they'd just forget. And they'd go back to other stuff, or they'd go and do another class and they'd deliver that. And then a year later, they go, oh, remember that drill that was really, really effective that we haven't done for 9 months? Maybe we should do that again. So I don't think it's just this inability to take an acquire skill and deliver it, but the fact that we're also not very good at doing something that works, sticking to it, before moving on to just trying something new because it's new.
Well, there's the story of every New Year's resolution, almost. We try these new things and we don't stick to them. Why don't we stick to them?
Is it because we don't see results straight away?
I think possibly, partly. I think some of it is that people give up when it gets a bit tough. When you start something new, it's interesting and it's exciting and it's different. And so that, the enthusiasm carries you along. And when the enthusiasm wears off, that's when most people stop going to the gym or stop eating healthily or whatever your New Year's resolution is. So what can you do when it gets to that sticking point to ensure that you dig deep and keep going? Because that's when it changes from being a resolution
to a habit. Yeah, and I think there are lots of things that people can do in their businesses that, if done consistently and regularly, would have an impact. But because they can't see the impact immediately, they kind of look for the next silver bullet, if you like.
Do you think that people make their resolutions or their things that they're trying to do in their business too big because they want to see measurable impactful change. So they go for, instead of going, well, I'm going to focus on losing £1, they go, I want to lose 3 stone, you know, and then that 3 stone becomes
insurmountable. It's
yeah,
too big.
it's too big. And instead of going, okay, I'll break that down into smaller bits, and I'll just focus on the next pound, half pound, you know, whatever. They get really caught up with looking at this big goal and going, well, I'll never be able to achieve that. It's just so big. It's so far away. I can't see myself doing that. So they stop and they do nothing. And I think people do that in their business as well. Instead of, you know, they make a goal of saying, oh, I don't know, I'm going to turn over £100,000 this year. And then they can't see noticeable movement towards that. So they say, well, I'm never going to achieve it. I'll just stop. It's not working. Whatever I'm doing, it's not working. Instead of saying, I'm going to increase my turnover by £100 this week and £100 the next week.
Yeah.
Because £100 doesn't seem that difficult. You know, if you put your price up by 0.1% or something, no one would notice, but you'd probably get that £100.
Yeah. It's a weird, I just think it's a really weird situation where people have got skills and they're not using them internally with it. And I wonder how much of that is because they don't value their own business as much as the businesses that they're working for. I mean, all the examples, in fairness, most of the examples that I can think of are based around B2B businesses, but there are a couple of B2C ones that I can, you know.
Maybe it's just that it's so, that skill is so normal and ingrained in them that they don't value it as a separate skill that they can use. So they see people paying them, but they maybe write it off as something different. They don't, like, go back to your original example of marketing. Oh, sorry, let's not use that one because that's not quite the same thing. But, you know, your email marketer who's not using email marketing, or your copywriter who's not got decent copy, is that, you know, that they just feel like either they're so busy with other work that they don't have time to do that, or they see spending time on their own business as taking time away from paid work. So it's quite hard to separate that because essentially you're either saying, I'm going to work more hours into my evenings and weekends, or I'm going to turn down paid work to do that for myself. Or it's just so normal and part of their everyday that they don't actually value it in the same way that their clients value it.
I wonder whether that's actually the key bit, that they take for granted that skill so much that they stop seeing it as a skill, and they put it in the same box as being able to tie their shoelaces, eat, walk. So the value lessens, and they don't see it as a skill, and then they don't associate it as being something that can act as a lever and be of benefit to themselves or the business, and therefore they don't think to use it at all.
So what can they do then to be more self-aware? How could they become aware of that?
So there's a great exercise that I think people could do. Can't take credit for this. I think it came from Daniel Priestley, which is how does he do it? I think it's to write down. Yes, to write down a list or record, whatever is easiest, every single achievement you've ever had. You know, starting with O-levels, GCSEs, A-levels, that award, your Duke of Edinburgh, you know, so you kind of like create this internal CV. That, you know, the first piece of work you've done, how much, you know, add up all the money you've earned every year in business or as an employee, and then what's the grand total? Because we always think of things like, well, you know, I earned 60 grand a year, and, you know, in that job, well, you did that for 10 years, it's more than $500,000 that you've earned, and, you know, all the rest of it, and you add all that up, and he calls it, that's your mountain of value.
Mm.
And within that mountain of value are things that you can sell because other people can't do them and don't have that value, whether it's a skill you have or a way of looking at things, etc., etc. But also it's a reminder of how much value you have to yourself and everything that you've achieved and accumulated. Because, you know, people have watched TV programs like, what's that one where they clean out people's houses?
Oh, it's like hoarders or something.
Hoarders, and you know, you've got piles of newspaper, and people are really, really good at accumulating stuff. You know, I'm you know, everybody who has a parent with a house with a loft is dreading it. Aren't they? You know, that kind of clear out thing. In fact, there are whole businesses where people do house clearances for that reason. But you've got the same amount of accumulated stuff in terms of ideas and value in your head. So by kind of bringing it out onto a piece of paper or whatever, you're showing a tangible version of the hoard that you've accumulated in your head, except it's got far more value than piles of newspaper and, you know, all the stuff that's gathering dust in a corner of the third bedroom you haven't used for 25 years underneath a tarpaulin with a bird cage on top. So I think that's a really useful thing to do, because then you can start looking at that going, oh, I've got that skill. I used to be able to do that. I've got that ability. How can I, and the next question to ask is, how can I use that skill? How can I use that ability? How can I bring that value into the business that I'm currently in? So another example of this was a conversation I had last night, actually, in the car with a client. No, not last night, because that was Sunday. Can't remember now. Friday night. Last week sometime, anyway. And it was with a guy, and we were talking about recruitment, and that he's really struggling to recruit in his business and get people in. And we got chatting, we started asking about, talking about what he used to do. And it turns out that when he was a teenager, he used to work in recruitment. And I said to him, look, I know the world of recruitment has changed a bit, but fundamentally, what did you do back then? Because this is probably pre-Indeed. And he said, well, we didn't have LinkedIn. We just cold call companies and get chatting to people. We'd go to websites, if they had a website, or directories, and find people that we were interested in, and we just cold call them and say, how's it going? Do you like your job? And would you be interested in another one? So I said, well, do that then. How many calls have you made to technicians that you're after who are already working in other people's businesses? Well, but they're not looking for a job. No, they may not be looking for a job, but that doesn't mean they're not necessarily satisfied with the one that they've got. You can't make that assumption on their behalf. But then we might get loads of people. And I said, well, brilliant. But that doesn't mean you have to hire them. Create a pool of talent that you can go back to at a later date. And when you look at it like that, I mean, there are two things that came out of that for me. One was, he's got this skill. He's not afraid of picking up the phone, talking to strangers, and basically saying to them, do you want something different to what you've currently got? Let me see what I can, I've got this firm that's looking, for someone with your skill set. I'm sure they'd love to have a chat with you. Are you interested? But he would struggle to do that for his own business. So then that comes full circle back around to kind of, well, set yourself up as a client. And just for this short period of time, get your business to retain you as a recruiter for the business. Regurgitate those skills that you've clearly got and use them. Or get a recruiter who's going to charge you $4,000 a land when you could do it yourself. And you're already really good at it. So why would you not? And so I think, that's a great example of recognizing the... I've always kidded myself that, I'm not really very good at sales, and, that sort of stuff. But I go back to being 19 and spending hours and hours putting flyers through people's doors, knocking on them if I thought they had kids in, and just having conversations cold on the doorstep. We're setting up this brand new tennis club. It's just around the corner on the old rec, and we're literally in the middle putting the fencing up. See, you've got kids. Would you like to bring them down for a trial session? Oh, no, they don't really play tennis. Oh, it's just good fun, it's totally free. Come down. We've even got an ice cream. Oh, I didn't know.
Ice cream.
Yeah. And I've gone through a stage of going, oh, I'm not very good at selling. I'm a little bit nervous. I don't like it. I've done it. I've walked into shops cold and asked for sponsorship for a leaflet that we hadn't printed yet because we couldn't afford to print it, which is why we needed the sponsorship. So actually, I've got these skills, not just selling myself as a tennis coach, but selling the product we had overall to selling something we hadn't even built yet. So an idea, if you like, was very successful at all three. Yet I seem to think I can't do that anymore. But even now, as I'm saying it, I'm kind of going, well, I know I can because I've done it, and I've generated hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of revenue just knocking on people's doors. What's stopping me doing that now?
So you've told yourself a story in the intervening years that you can't do it.
I can't do it, yeah. So yeah, it's interesting there. I do think this thought about what have you got in your locker that you could be using to benefit your own business, especially if it's a current skill, but also if it's a previous skill, how can you leverage it, bring it into what you're doing now and take advantage of it so that your business benefits from it.
Be interesting to see what people say. Then maybe they can comment with an old skill that they can brush off and use in their business.
Yeah, and bring it through. It was just I couldn't believe it when we had that first conversation. He was a six-figure marketer, and he hasn't got a marketing strategy for his own business, and you're just a little bit like, whoa.
Yeah.
Well, there's the answer to all your problems right there. And you know how to do it.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah.
Really good. Cool.
Interesting.
See you next week.
See you next week.